Hello and welcome to the Pre-Chiro podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Glass, and today we're having a meaningful conversation with Dr. Monika Buerger, an expert in sensory development, chiropractic, and many other things. But I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Dr. Monika, and also if you could just get us started by reflecting on that moment where you decided you wanted to become a chiropractor, what was going on in your life, what really attracted you to this path.
Oh, well, hello, everybody, and thanks for hanging out with us. So it's kind of a crazy story. My undergrad degree is in exercise physiology, and I worked in the physical therapy, exercise rehab genre. And I was very anti-chiropractic, actually. And so long story short, the two women that I worked for in the physical therapy community said, you should think about going to chiropractic college. And I thought, no, those guys are quacks. I had a lot of health problems growing up. I had eczema, allergies, headaches, migraines, irritable bowel syndrome, menstrual irregularities, thyroid, you name it, the whole gamut. And so I started interviewing some chiropractors where I grew up in my hometown in Fresno. And I'll never forget, I walked into one office and he sat down with me and says, "Oh my goodness, I could help you with your asthma." And I'm like, wait a minute, I got to get out of here. You're a quack. Visit another office, and that chiropractor challenged me to become a chiropractic patient in order to see the benefits of chiropractic. And I'm like, sure, game on, And I underwent chiropractic care, and it radically changed my life. And I say chiropractically saved my life. So that was Dr. Claudia Onreig, who is I call her the mother of pediatric chiropractic. So that started my journey on becoming a chiropractor. And then I've always been very interested in neurology. And so soon after graduation, I embarked on really putting together the pieces of how chiropractic fosters optimal development from a neurological standpoint. And then that led me into neuronutrition and genetics. And so I look at this whole complex neural matrix with the pivot, with the centerpiece being chiropractic care.
And that's amazing. That's very unique, and there's not enough of that. So that's why we're having these types of conversations,
exactly.
Just to shine a light on the people in our profession that are really pioneering and trailblazing and going in different directions. But can we rewind a little bit and move back to those pre-chiropractic years? What was your upbringing life that had you so challenged health-wise? And what was going on in your life at that moment where you kind of were interested in the neurology? Where did that inspiration come from? What are the origin stories of how you really had different awarenesses that led you to be primed to get out of chiropractic school and do all that you've done?
That is an awesome question, because that is the basis of what I do. I was hit by a car when I was 5 as a pedestrian. So I fractured my pelvis and my femur, and I was in the hospital back in the day. They put you in traction. So I was in the hospital for several months. And then after I got out of the hospital, I was in a body cast from here all the way down. And so, of course, I'm going to have trauma, emotional, physical trauma from that event. And so from that point forward, I remember growing up with these headaches and just a number of health issues. And then when I started working when I was 11, actually out at a shooting range where I'd be outside and they would have crop dusters flying overhead in basically with all the chemicals in the fields around me. So I had a lot of toxic load. Of course, I was still, being hit by that car when I was 5. That leads to, even though you think at age 5, neurology is solidified, it's not. We know that now. There's a thing called neuroplasticity or neuroplastic development. And so I had a lot of challenges that was, at that time, we didn't understand all of how these challenges can lead to health difficulties, but now we do. So a lot of the work that I do now centers around, I'm weird. I read a lot. I read from the neurodevelopmental research, from the neuropsychiatric research, from metabolic research. And the consensus now that we know is that developmental origins of health and disease, that foundation that lays down your trajectory of health for the rest of your life, actually begins in the prenatal and the early years. And so my foundation was obviously altered at a very young age, which led to a lot of health challenges in my 20s and 30s, which I guess I kept digging for how I could get healthier. And chiropractic was my first step there.
And where were you at in life when you started chiropractic school? What was your entry into chiropractic education like? What were some surprises you encountered, maybe challenges you had to overcome with that experience of being a chiropractic student? Maybe talk about a mentor that you had or a path that you took to really develop your interests and follow your passion, because having Claudia Onrig be that initial chiropractor that sent you to chiropractic school obviously maybe planted some seeds in your psyche that you were able to really explore as a student.
Absolutely. I mean, that was talking about a phenomenal foundation to have from the pediatric realm. I was really involved in the Gonstead work, chiropractic Gonstead work, and I had another great mentor, Dr. Ed Cremata, and he was always reading, always researching, looking at how chiropractic fits the model from a visceral standpoint, like how could it help digestion and so forth. So I had a lot of great support, and they ended up writing an initial textbook, a biomechanical chiropractic textbook. And then after graduation, I was asked to write in the pediatric chiropractic textbook, which I did. I've now done 3 chapters in that textbook. And then as my interest evolved, I also have become very close friends with one of the top researchers in our profession, Dr. Heidi Havik, at a New Zealand chiropractic college. So having these people as mentors and friends throughout my career has helped me come from a multiple pronged angle and try to put all the pieces together when it comes to the power of chiropractic. The basis is the brain wants to see the status of the body. The brain needs to know the status of the body, where the body is in space, how the body's moving through space, the status of the microbiome, the gut, of the lungs, of everything. And when that information is skewed coming to the brain, there's faulty output, and that's what leads to health issues. So that's kind of a short synopsis of my journey.
Yeah, while we're on topic, why don't you kind of lay out the Intersect for Kids programs, the different offerings that you've created, maybe the behind the scenes of how you've created those programs, why you created them, and who you made them for.
That's a loaded question. So we're actually in the throes of transitioning our program under one entity called the Academy of Neurodevelopmental Practices. And the reason we're doing that is because I was just reminded like 5 minutes ago of like, oh my God, woman, how much content have you done over the years? So I've been in practice 32 years. I've been teaching for over 25 years, and I lecture all around the world. I wanted other chiropractors to understand the power of chiropractic, but also how to look through a different lens of what something means when anybody, especially an infant, when they enter your office, I like to rewind and fast forward. If it's a baby, if it's a little one, I like to look at the patterns they're expressing, their movement patterns, their eye contact, their eye gaze. Are they spitting up? Are they colicky? Look at this and say, where can I possibly help here when they're in my office? And if this is not addressed, what is the potential fast forward? What might we expect to see down the road knowing what I know with regards to metabolic issues, diseases, neuropsychiatric illnesses, what that might look like for that individual down the road. And it's very frightening if it's not dealt with at an early age. Likewise, I like to take an adult or older child and say, where in the trajectory of development might have something derailed? And what can I do now to help go back and get the train back on the tracks? Okay. So my programs are really for anybody that really wants to dig in and be able to understand the whole complex neural matrix, from neuronutrition to primitive reflexes to postural control to the microbiome to chiropractic neuroscience and how it all fits in, to be able to look at anybody that walks in your office across all ages and all stages to figure out the what, where, when, why. How can I best serve this person for optimal health? So we have chiropractic students, chiropractors, CAs, and we are moving to a level. We have different levels that we're going to be basically rolling out over the next year. So it depends on how deep of a dive somebody wants to go. Our Developing Minds program, I call that the big gun. It takes 32 years of my experience, my research, my teaching, my clinical experience, and we cover all areas from preconception to early adulthood. Nutrition, exercises, chiropractic, the whole gamut.
Yeah, can you do a deep dive for us if I'm a chiropractic student and I want to study within your program, of like where I'd start, where are the resources that I would go to learn more, what are maybe the first initial classes that I would be taking, and then maybe just tease apart some of the different levels and layers of awareness and clinical expertise and just practices that students can expect as outcomes from your program?
Yeah, I would go to if you go to the website CE for chiropractors, you will find an array of different standalone classes. They're for a practicing chiropractor, they're CE certified for most of the states. So those are standalone classes. You can take them online. The next level would be our Intersect for Life level. That's an online learning academy dashboard kind of academic venue. And we've got a lot of amazing information with regards to primitive reflexes. These are infantile reflexes that we're born with that should not stay active. If they stay active, they hold down the neurological integrity of our nervous system and our sensory systems. So we have sensory work on there. We have just a number of things on there for kind of self-paced learning. And then the next level up would be our Developing Minds program. And that is a mentoring program where we can do more hand-holding type of work. And we meet quarterly. We have a grand rounds. We give clinical cases. We walk you through what are some nutritional considerations you need to understand. When you have a low tone person in your office, what might that mean? So how do we put gas in the tank if we don't have enough fuel and good nutrition and so forth? We can't necessarily start at the top by trying to give them specific exercises or protocols, because you might blow the gas tank, you might blow the fuse. So our Developing Minds program walks you through all those deep dive nuances. We look at some genetic methylation biochemistry and how that might be important into laying the foundation of an individual.
Yeah, I'm wondering if, like, as a chiropractic student, it's easy to go through your program, or if you suggest once they get out of chiropractic school, and then maybe you could even just give some advice to the version of you back in the day in chiropractic school of like where you should invest your efforts, where you should spend your time outside of the curriculum that you need to go through to pass boards and get your license. Like, What does that parallel program look like if they want to practice like you someday?
That's a great question. So a lot has changed since I was a student. 32 years ago, a lot of this information wasn't available and so forth. So there's some awesome programs you can do tandem while you're in college. There's one that is not yet publicly known, but will probably be coming forth in the next several months. And there's going to be some. I can't say anything because uh, it's confidential right now. But follow me on probably the Intersect for Life educational seminars. Intersect for Life educational seminars Facebook page, and you will be guided through some very exciting things that are coming out. So that's going to be a great program that's going to come out. ICPA, I taught for them. I actually I was basically the lead, the pioneer in bringing the more neuro work to the pediatric world through the ICPA. So the International Chiropractic Pediatric Association has great classes. Definitely our Intersect for Life, there's different level classes. You can play around with that. And if you're uncertain, just send me a message as far as what you'd like to, like what you're interested in. Be involved in your pediatric practices on campus. There's a lot of great stuff going on with those pediatric practices on campuses. There's a great, the Kids Summit is another great learning experience. That is Dr. Dorda Blott out of Australia puts those on. And those are often offered virtually if you don't want to. In fact, I'm going to be teaching for them in Barcelona, Spain in September. But those are virtual as well. So there's a lot of online virtual options these days. Reach out to me, reach out to somebody in the pediatric world so you can to hook you up if you're interested in some of those venues.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of choppy feedback on the visuals right now. I'm not sure if there's something going on behind the scenes in your phone, but that is what it is. It's kind of it's frustrating because I really value what you're sharing, and at the same time, I'll probably just have to cut the visuals out, and it'll just be like audio over top of like visuals of your website or visuals of different people practicing the different types of things that you teach them. Can you maybe just share some fundamentals of like what neurodevelopment is in the context of chiropractic? And how chiropractic relates, because think about a high school student or a college student that's exploring the profession of chiropractic. How can we help expose them to like the opportunities that exist within this field? It seems like it's emerging, it's new, it's fresh. Can you maybe just kind of give some basic understanding as to like what the field has to offer and like why chiropractic can be so helpful for these special populations?
Sure. So what we know now, okay, like I said earlier, the brain wants to know the status of the body. That starts in utero when baby is getting the sensory experience from mom's bowel sounds, from it's what we call sensory experience. Then when we're born, the first couple years of life, the way we experience our world, sight, smell, sound, taste, touch, but our ability to move through space, to lay on our tummy, to bring our hands to midline, to roll over, to get on all fours, to creeping and crawling. All those motor patterns have to happen in order for the brain to get information, for the brain actually to develop skills that we are going to need as we get older, for learning attention behavior, for social skills, for knowing right from wrong, for mental health. All this happens based on how we experience the world through sensory experiences and through motor movement. As chiropractors, we look at what we call vertebral subluxations, misalignments within the spinal column, in particularly the skull and the spinal column, that restrict proper movement and interfere with proper information to the brain. When that happens, what we call neuroplasticity, brain molding, brain pathways are skewed. They're immature. The brain is not able to connect and send messages for proper response. And that's what we are seeing associated, especially in the world of mental health challenges and neuropsychiatric illnesses. It's the disconnect between the brain and the body and the body and the brain. So we also know from chiropractic neuroscience research, this is an exciting new field. If new practitioners are interested in neuroscience or in research, there's amazing opportunities within our profession to work towards that as well. And what we're seeing is when we do a chiropractic adjustment, when we reestablish proper spinal movement, we are essentially reestablishing proper input information into the brain. Thereby, the brain can now recognize the status of our body and what it needs or what it doesn't need. Does it need to have a bowel movement so I don't have chronic constipation? Do I need to be afraid of something in my environment? And do I really have to go into fight or flight mechanism? Or am I safe and secure? So so we know now that if we can establish those neural connections early on in life, that lays down the foundation for the rest of the life of that individual for their health and wellness.
Absolutely. And then just as we move towards the end of this conversation, if you could maybe just describe what the next 5 to 10 years looks like for this field as it's evolving. Like, I don't know if you know, like, if you can kind of create any sort of explanation of where it's at and where it's going in the direction of, but you've talked about how it's a great opportunity to be in the field right now of neuroscience, of chiropractic neuroscience, of sensory development, neurodevelopment. How can students really maybe look to the future if they're just going to school right now of maybe things they should get involved with, or ways they can contribute, or just anything that you think of for students?
The sky is the limit. The sky is the limit. There is so much
Get themselves immersed in what you're up to and what the field's doing.
Yeah, the sky is the limit. It is absolutely the sky. I mean, we are in the most prime, exciting times of this profession. The research is trying to go more. We're looking at being able to do more neuroscience research in the pediatric realm itself, but understanding really what we have to offer. And again, when we pull all these other entities together, from neurodevelopment to neuroscience to neuropsychiatric care and everything, all those areas, we're essentially talking the same language. Everybody's talking about the autonomic nervous system. The balance in the nervous system has to be there in order for optimal health to occur. That is the foundational premise of chiropractic, of regulating the nervous system. And now we're seeing a lot more research and a lot more attention being paid to research. So we can now validify all these decades of what we see in our offices. So if a person is wanting more to get involved more on an academia level, on a research level, there's a lot of opportunities out there. And the Chiropractic Future Foundation is putting together some pretty awesome literature and opportunities for students to get involved in chiropractic research and neuroscience research.
Is it Chiropractic Futures, the insurance company, or is it the Chiropractic Future Foundation? And if so,
The chiropractic.
can you maybe just describe what that foundation is? Yeah.
Yeah, Chiropractic Future, the foundation, is an organization that basically is putting together, it has different levels in it and different parts of the organization, but they're looking at how to best use technology within chiropractic, legalities, and there's different groups. One of the groups within that foundation is a research group, and they're very committed to helping students understand, find, and navigate different potential opportunities within the research realm of chiropractic.
And if you could get creative with me for a second, like in your world, if people were applying what you knew in their practices, or if parents knew what you knew and knew how to adapt to the situations that were emerging when they were pregnant, after they had just given birth and have a new baby that's maybe not reaching milestones or is not functioning 100%, like how would society look different? Like maybe just paint a picture or tell a story of like how it would look in an optimal setting or in an optimal society where people knew how to adapt, or people had strategies and solutions in mind of how to navigate the health challenges of their kids, or just the world in whole.
You just hit my heart button. That has been the premise of everything that I do. I truly believe with all of my being that we have the ability to turn the tide. That's one of my slogans in our Developing Minds program, being able to turn the tide for generations to come. We know that prenatal stress has gone through the roof since COVID. We are also seeing from the literature that the COVID generation, that's what I'm referring to them, in the early years, in the first year of life, we are already seeing verbal, motor, cognition deficits. Their brains are not developing like they should because of the prenatal stress. We as chiropractors should be working with potential parents during the preconception period, definitely prenatal period, and the early postnatal period. If we change, and this is from, again, the neuroscience literature, this is not from me making it up from the chiropractic depths of what I believe. We know that if we can alter those stressors early on, we alter the way the brain develops, the way the neurochemistry develops, and how those changes are what we see, those maladaptives, those deficits are what we see in those individuals that are suffering from mental, emotional, and physical health challenges. If we were able to get every person on the planet under chiropractic care, the trajectory of this world, the mental health issues, the gun violence, the drug addictions, all that would drastically change. It is so powerful. It is so powerful. It's unbelievable. But that's why we need to get our message out there, and we need to get more people involved in our profession and understanding the research and understanding the literature and understanding how altering that the input to the brain early on sets the foundation for the rest of their life. And I could go on for days on this. I mean, we look at the thing called the ACEs study, the Adverse Childhood Experiences study. And this was done, the Kaiser Foundation years ago, and we have more emerging research on it. But they say that an adverse experience, now they're mostly referring to emotional abuse, being born in a home that's alcohol addiction, alcohol and drugs and so forth. But that their life expectancy is about 20 years less because of those early stressors. We need to look at stressors as a whole. Stressors on the nervous system are traumas, thoughts, toxins, thoughts, technology, all these things that we're being bombarded with. If the nervous system cannot regulate itself properly, the long term, that train is going to derail at some point in their life. And it may look like a mental illness, it may look like a emotional illness, a physical illness, whatever. So it's just unbelievable the potential we have to set the tone and change the tide.
And do you have any awareness of like how we've grown in recent decades? You said you've been in the game for about 30 years. How much has this area or field of study grown from a practitioner number standpoint? And like how much does it need to grow in order for us to even be capable of meeting the needs of our communities?
That's the golden ticket. It needs to grow. We need to get this information out more. And there's a lot of us working behind the scenes to get it out to colleges more, to create programs. But this is an evolving entity, an evolving tide. It's grown drastically since I've been out. But we, as a profession, we need to grow more. We need more chiropractors out there practicing in the trenches, understanding the philosophy and the power that we have to change the trajectory of health. So we need more people practicing, and then we definitely need more people. But pediatric family wellness chiropractic in the last decade has just drastically evolved, exploded.
So just to bring you into the fold really quickly, the pre-chiro program that is going to be released within the next couple months for college and high school students is going to get them to start their own pre-chiro clubs on their college or high school campuses. So I'm just wondering, and also before they even do that, there's an apprentice program where they're going into offices in structured relationships where the person that's hosting them has an awareness of what is to be accomplished in that experience for the student, and the student has an awareness. I'm just wondering, within the context of your specialized field, if you can maybe give some insights on what students should really be looking for and trying to observe and experience at least once in an office within your network or within a network that you're associated with. And then also when they start a pre-chiro club, maybe some activities that pre-chiro students can be working together on to explore together, maybe some resources, or maybe if you have any prompts that say they could spend 3 to 6 months working on exploring certain types of research and connecting the dots so that they can make a tri-board presentation, or they could write a term paper, or they could do some sort of TikTok series of posts with what they've learned. Just wondering if you could give some advice or some guidance.
Sure. One, if my dear friend Heidi Habeck's got a great platform as well, and I would go to kairoshub.com, and there's a lot of great information on there and snippets to learn more about the science and what chiropractic can do. I would reach out to maybe the pediatrics club presidents on the different chiropractic campuses. If you're in a college, if you have a college, a pre-chiro club, and you're near one of the campuses, the chiropractic campuses, reach out to their clubs, their club presidents, and seeing if you can get somebody from them to come on and talk with you. Reach out to your local chiropractors. And I would advocate just like my first mentor did to me, you become a chiropractic patient yourself. Because when you experience chiropractic, it is different than it's different than being, it's so tangible. So I would advocate for you to reach out to a chiropractor in your community, and start getting under care as well.
And then just because you're a specialist in prenatal and preconception care, I'm just curious if you could see the parallel between how pre-chiropractic really is the missing link or the primary subluxation in bringing people into the profession in a conscious and creative way, where you're giving strategies and you're creating a structure that they could really thrive, and they can have tools to make the most of their experience and have the best possible experience, just like the parents that you work with every day in practice. I'm just curious if you could kind of reflect on this pre-chiropractic idea and maybe share a little bit more about, like, how important it could be.
Hands down, hands down. That can build you such a solid foundation. So look, any college program isn't super easy, right? It can be grueling. It can be, it is a commitment. But if you have that foundation, any solid foundation for anything you're going to do in life, if there's an opportunity to help ground you and support you and build a foundation, that is hands down going to help you be more successful when you are in the trenches. Your first set of trenches would be chiropractic college and going through the curriculum. And then it would be your early years, and then it would be your later years, in practice. So hands down, that was a fantastic analogy. Just like preconception and prenatal care is so important for laying the foundations of health for the rest of the life of that individual. This pre-chiropractic community and support and education is going to be phenomenally important for your prenatal, your chiropractic college experience, and your postnatal life, your graduate experience. So it's a no-brainer.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with the students today. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're very busy. You got a million things you're up to, but yeah, we're going to keep building these conversations so that we can have a network of information that makes it really easy for students to find you in high school and college, and just broaden your reach, because you're putting forth so much great effort that if we could connect another 10,000 people to the work that you're bringing forward, even on a superficial level, and maybe they don't even go become chiropractors, maybe they go become medical professionals, it's going to make a huge difference, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Just knowing the power of chiropractic, and